Hi, thanks so much for joining me today. I just wanted to come to you guys real quick with a word about why you should write your story. Now, this came to me today on a whim, kind of because I've had some pretty amazing opportunities popping up at me, and they're all a result of this process of telling my story that I started many years ago. And so when I say tell your story, I know some of you are thinking, okay, which one? I have many stories, right? All of us have many life experiences, many times that we've faced a challenge, adversity that we've overcome, an achievement that we've made. Sometimes your story might be about someone that impacted you along your journey, or maybe there was a turning point in your life where you just reached a certain point and then you decided to go in a different direction and it's been different ever since, right? So each of us has many stories. But when I say tell your story, I'm talking about the one that conveys the values that really make you who you are today and that had the greatest impact in terms of your purpose and what it is that you want out of life. So my process of telling my story began with writing in a diary. Now, growing up, I hated writing. I hated writing because I associated it with school, and I figured it was always this chore of adults telling me what I had to write, and then I had to turn it in, get a grade. And so I just had this story going on in my own head that I hated writing. So I never kept a diary. I never kept a journal all those years growing up and throughout my adolescence. I might have written 1 or 2 pages that whole time, but I just didn't journal about my experience. And what happened is, later in my mid-20s, I was going through a really hard time in life, and I had some time that I spent with my aunt. And I remember she asked me, well, are you writing? And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, do you keep a journal? And I said, well, no, I don't really write. She said, you should write every day, a minimum of 3 pages, just free flow it. And so I thought, okay, I'll give it a try, but I didn't think much would come out of it. So I remember I still have the journal. It's actually right here. And she gave me this little journal and put some loose leaf paper in there for me. And on the first page, I actually wrote, and I quote, I don't really know where to start, so I'll just write that, period. And before you know it, I was, of course, writing an entire page, and this entire book got filled up. And I have probably like 8 or 9 of these of just words of inspiration that came to me, and I came to love writing. What started to happen, it took me maybe 5 or 6 days of journaling that way for me to really get something out of it. Most of the time I felt myself kind of just regurgitating some frustrations. I was writing the same thing over and over again, and something started to shift. I started getting these insights of just information that came from, I believe, from my spiritual nature, my higher self, right? This higher wisdom started to come through. And so I would sometimes write down little things, and I'd say, ooh, and I put a little star next to it because I had so many words on the page. I wanted to make sure that I could come back to it later. And so then I evolved a little bit to where I started to ask questions. So I would ask a question, and then I would respond to my own question in my writing. And down the line, it became this amazing process of self-inquiry and self-discovery and getting these insights. And what I got out of it was healing. I was able to forgive people that I thought hurt me in some kind of way. All the brokenness that I thought that I had, I realized that I wasn't broken, but that I had a lot of mindset blocks, and I was able to overcome that through writing. And I mean, guys, this is free. People pay thousands of dollars going through counseling and going on medication, and not to denounce those things. Sometimes you absolutely do need those things, but have you tried writing? Right? Writing is so powerful and so healing, and it's free. You can do it every day. So telling your story through writing. Let's get back to that. A couple years ago, when I got pregnant with my son, I decided to document my journey through the pregnancy. And I wasn't trying to get attention. I don't know why I did it. I just wanted to talk about my story. It was just coming out of me, right? So I started this blog, and I swear there were tumbleweeds blown across the screen every time I would hit publish, because there was like no one reading, no one commenting, or so I thought. So fast forward to a few years later, that was when I was pregnant with my first son. After I gave birth to my second son, a woman contacted me earlier this year. Now my son is he just turned 2. So it's been 2 years almost since I posted a picture on Instagram that came from that blog. And she contacted me earlier this year and invited me on her podcast to talk about home birth and to talk about unassisted childbirth, because my first son was a home birth and my second son was unassisted home birth. And I was like, wow, you never know who's listening. But leading up to that, I've had women contacting me, sending me private messages through Facebook. I get at least 1 to 2 a month. And they'll say, hey, I found your blog, and I'm thinking, people still read that, because I stopped writing that blog, but it's still up. And people are still contacting me saying, hey, I read your birth story, or I read your blog post and it really inspired me. I'm planning a home birth. What do I need to do? Who do I need to talk to? Where can I get more resources? And so through that process, through writing also, and through publishing my own story on my website, on my About page, what I realized is that your story, yes, they're your experiences, but the story is not for you. It's bigger than you. Your story is a part of your purpose. It's a part of why you're here on the planet. And through telling my story, I was able to get the wisdom, the insights, the clarity about my purpose, and also to connect with other people who identify with the values in that story. So whether you are a writer, a singer, or if you want to, be a speaker, whatever it is that you want to create in the world, telling your story is a huge part of that. So you can have a professional website and a really well-written blog and a nice presentation, but if the human element, if you are not infused in that, and by you I mean your story, your why, what inspired you to want to create these things, this message or this movement, whatever it is. If that's not there, then something is missing, right? And so I think you'll notice more opportunities and more people open up to you when you open up to them. So just remember that you don't have to overshare. You don't have to tell people every single nitty-gritty detail of everything that you've ever been through. But just remember whatever is most relevant to the work that you're currently doing, whatever is most relevant to what inspires you. If you haven't even started your business yet, but you're about to, or you've been thinking about it, what is the story? What is it that makes you want to do this so bad? What is calling to you? And then look back and see how your story influenced that. And be sure to weave that into what you do. When you create your About page, put that on your bio. If you don't have a website yet, go to your Facebook page and create a little bio. Practice putting snippets of your story out there until you get comfortable being able to tell the whole thing from an empowered place. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. Let me think if there's anything else. So we talked about how telling your story can help you to connect, right? It helps other people to be able to identify those values. We talked about how your story can help you to heal, because rather than just perceiving things from a one-sided aspect, sometimes what happens is when your story is clanking around in your head, you might think you have it all together, but writing is a creative process. So you'll notice when you start to write, it comes out one-sided, especially like me. When I started journaling, I was frustrated. So all my journaling was in black and white. This person's wrong and I'm right, and that's just the way it was. But there's a part of us, right? Aside from our human nature, there is this observant part of us that is objective, that's able to step back and see the balance in all things, that's able to see the other person's perspective, our perspective, what we contributed to the situation, what they contributed, and then what's next. And so in order to get to that point, to step out of that emotional soup that sometimes we get in, if you've got a lot of emotions running high, you're heartbroken, you're angry, writing will help you to emotionally detach from that so that you can actually look at the situation from kind of this bird's eye view and see, you'll develop the awareness to see, how did I actually contribute to this? And this is not about self-blame or guilt or anything. This is about you being able to see where you need to work on yourself so that moving forward, you don't have to revisit this experience again. And so that's what I wanted to really emphasize about the healing aspect of writing. As I said, writing is a highly creative process. So at the same time, if you're writing about a difficult situation you're going through, let's say, or maybe you have a story that you haven't fully processed and you're not really over it yet. When you write, you're not just recalling information, but you're actually creating a new experience on the spot. You're creating new insights, and you're gaining new wisdom. You're forming new outlooks on life. So every time you tap into the power of writing, your brain has this wonderful process. If you want to look it up, it's called neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is this science that pretty much says that your brain is always rewiring itself based upon your thoughts and your experiences. So in a nutshell, you are both the cause and the effect of your life experiences. We're kind of making this up as we go. Depending on how you show up in the space, that's what determines what kind of experience you have, regardless of what other people do. Your experience is based upon the way you perceive the world. And so when you get into writing, into this creative process of telling your story, the more you do that, the more insights you'll be able to get, the more awareness you'll develop, and the more confidence you'll develop, and the more clarity around your purpose you'll be able to develop as you see new insights, new ways of being. You might think, well, I know my story inside out. Not till you write it. I challenge you on that one, because I'm telling you, I have stories that I write about all the time, and every time I write about them, I get something new out of it, and it is amazing. So I don't want to ramble on that. So we talked about how writing can help you connect with other people through your values. It helps you with healing, and writing also helps with clarity. So that's all I wanted to say about that today. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you have found this information helpful, please do share this out with your friends. And I would like to invite you next week on Monday. We are taking inspired action. So if you are a woman who is starting or planning to start or has already started a creative or spiritual business, and you don't have a blog yet, or you haven't really put yourself out there, this challenge is for you. It's completely free. It's my Express Yourself 5-day blogging challenge. So on day 1, we're going to get really crystal clear on what your message is, what your purpose for your blog is, so that when you start creating content and writing, you always have a direction, a clear direction where your message is going. Day 2, we're going to break through any limiting beliefs that you have that are holding you back from putting yourself out there. On day 3, we are going to tap into your story, which is kind of what I've been talking about today, and just really get in there and find out what those gems are so that you can set up your about page and write your bio. So you'll get some practice with that. Day 4, we are going to come up with a light strategy to help you stay focused and consistent, because anytime you are blogging or doing anything online for your business, you got to be consistent or else you kind of just disappear. And day 5 is showtime. We are going to write and publish your blog and put it out there. And I've got a very simple formula to help you do that, to make this process quick. The whole point of the challenge is to help you put yourself out there and make it as easy and simple as possible. It doesn't have to be time consuming and overcomplicated, but taking inspired action is our main goal. So if this sounds like something that would be helpful to you, visit bit.ly/5daybc and you can sign up for the challenge there. And I will see you on the other side. Thanks so much for joining me today, and take care.